Hello and welcome to this new and fun Better Culture webinar. While people are arriving, just want to see if my chat function works. And so for anyone who's here as an early bird, thanks for being here. Would you mind typing in the webinar chat for me, what characteristic should people look for in a potential leader? That's what this whole webinar is going to be about, is what should we be looking for in potential leaders? And so I want to know from your perspective, what is it that makes a leader effective? Get a few answers here in the chat. See what folks say before we kick off live. Thank you. Keep those coming. I'm going to come back to those in a moment when we officially launch the webinar. And it's good to know that the chat function is working. Let's see how many folks we have coming. Got a great group registered. Fantastic. Well, welcome everybody to this Better Culture webinar called Stop Promoting the Wrong People. This webinar is about how to spot leadership talent that will actually deliver for you and for your business. I'm Better Culture co-founder Brett Hoogeveen, and I'm really excited that you're here. This is going to be a fun and useful and really important conversation about the power of leadership and really what it looks like. What can we do to better spot leadership potential and talent? And just a heads up, I'm going to be talking about a free Better Culture resource during this webinar that I hope everyone will grab and download because it's going to help you do just that. It'll help you stop promoting the wrong people. And if you're a leader yourself, it might give you some ideas on how you could improve and become a better leader and manager. All right. So I want to kick off with this introductory question. If you weren't here for my pre-webinar question, feel free to put an answer to this in the chat, which is, what characteristics should people look for in a potential leader? Now, this conversation, this webinar, I'm going to do my best to answer that question for you, to give you first, a list of 10 characteristics that you might look for, and ultimately, those are going to come from a big, major, global, top probably 5 company in the world. And then I'm going to give you Better Culture's list of 21 characteristics that you should look for when you're looking for leadership talent. So let's see what our wonderful guests to the podcast have suggested. Michaela says accountability. Chad says humility, like accountability from Matt, work ethic, modeling a desired behavior. I like that. Being personable, steadiness under pressure. That's a good one. Being inspiring, your ability to communicate in an inspiring way. EQ, okay, your emotional quotient or emotional intelligence. Others have said be capable of developing trust. Be able to give direction, be collaborative, innovative. Act with integrity. These are all good answers, okay? Good communicators, innovative. Thank you for everyone that gave an answer to that question. Those are all good answers. The goal of this webinar is by the end of this, I'm going to give you a comprehensive, complete list of what you can look for, what a great leader does, sort of the characteristics that personify an effective leader and manager. And then ultimately, I'm going to give you a resource that's going to help you spot those folks for your organization, promote the right people, stop promoting the wrong people, and build better leaders and organizations. So I want to start with describing this top 5 global organization that maybe a few of you have heard of called Google, okay? Back in 2008, and yes, I know that's a few years ago, but all the data is still valid, and it's the best study that I've seen still done to date, okay? Google wanted to study whether managers actually make a difference, okay? Do leaders matter? Now, Google is a very, obviously, especially at that time, a very technology-driven company. A lot of smart people, a lot of engineers showing up, writing code, building products. And there was a perception across Google, a fairly prominent perception, that these engineers just thought managers are at best sort of a necessary evil, and that they get in the way a lot. And they create bureaucracy, they screw things up. Essentially, that managers didn't matter, that it was engineers that mattered, it was the producers that mattered, and that management just sort of got in the way. So they did a study that they called Project Oxygen to figure out, do managers add value? Are managers valuable in a system? Okay. And this is a quote from their former senior vice president of people ops that said, yeah, people were skeptical. Okay. So they did this study about, does leadership matter? And the results are not fully visible and published, but what they did share is absolutely they found out that good managers improved output. They improved the performance of the team. They created better products. They created it faster, more effectively. They obviously created better engagement and satisfaction among employees as well as customers. Good managers decrease team turnover, and they overall improve the effectiveness of a team. Okay, so all the characteristics you guys gave me when we got started, as well as what I'm going to give you at the end of this program, if you can hire and put good managers into leadership roles, I just can't tell you how much value there is to an organization. We often say there's really only 2 steps to building a world-class company culture: put the right people in leadership positions, and then train them on how to lead, train them on how to be effective managers. And this first step should not be overlooked, because if you put the wrong person in a management role, it's really hard to train them to be the effective manager that will produce these results. Okay, so what are the characteristics of those leaders? We'll get into that in a minute. From our own perspective at Better Culture, we often describe what we call the leadership loop, where every client we work with, for-profit, nonprofit, government agency, they're trying to run a successful enterprise, a successful organization. And this path will apply in your business, regardless of whatever industry you're in. Whatever your business goals are, they flow through people and culture. And this is essential to understand on really what's essential to look for in spotting the potential for an effective leader. I won't walk you through this entire loop, but as you can see, it ends with business success and it flows all the way back around, and it starts with having a healthy culture, because a healthy culture is what attracts and builds and motivates and inspires and keeps great people to create that success. And what a leader or a manager, one of their most important duties is to create that environment, to protect that environment on a team that makes good people want to show up and do great work together. Okay, that's the value that a manager adds. And so we call this our leadership loop, because it's really leaders that build that culture that get us where we want to go. You're going to see this same data play out and the same perspective play out in Google's research study, as well as what I'm going to share at the end of this program. So first off, what's the cost of promoting the wrong managers? Okay, if you've ever worked in an organization where you haven't had a great boss, or if right now maybe you run or you operate a business and you have 20 different managers that have very different skill sets, capabilities, strengths, weaknesses, you can probably see some of this happening right under your own nose. Okay, teams get frustrated. We hate to lose top contributors, high performers. Growth that stalls. A team just fails to deliver or evolve or improve. Obviously lost potential, cultural damage, missed results. Guys, this presentation is about performance. It's not about wouldn't it be nice if I had a great boss? It's about how can my team be as effective as possible? How can we create the most dominantly successful business in whatever industry you're in? And I am telling you, one of the essential steps is to get the right people into these leadership roles so that you can avoid these costs of wrong promotions and gain all the benefit that there is to be had from getting the right people in those roles. So today, I've already given you as much as I'm going to in this presentation about why effective leadership is hugely important. If you don't believe me, look up some more of the data on Google's study. Ask your favorite chat AI bot, do managers really matter? Does getting the right leader in the right position matter? It really, really does. Okay. From here on out, I'm going to explain 21 traits that are sorted into 3 categories that really define the characteristics we're looking for in effective supervisors. I'm going to give you free access to what we call our People Leader Checklist. If you've already downloaded that, you're a step ahead. If not, I'm going to show you exactly how some of the best organizations are using that checklist to spot and promote and even develop and grow a little bit effective leaders. And then I'll talk about 3 ways you might specifically use that checklist, okay? Ways you can actually put it into action. So this checklist I'm describing, this is just a little graphic to show you what that looks like, the People Leader Checklist. And we built this resource because we got asked so often, yeah, Brett, that second part of what I said earlier, we do a lot of leadership training and development, but often we didn't have a perfect resource to give to our clients on how do you make the right promotion decisions to get the right people into those roles before we develop them. It makes all the difference in the world. And so this checklist is divided into these three categories: personal qualities, relationship skills, leadership potential. If you're seeing this on the screen, don't worry, I'm going to show you how to download that later in the program. So it'll be coming up toward the end of the program. I want to go back to the story that I started. Google, in this Project Oxygen that they did in 2008 and have updated and kept all the way up until present, they still publish ongoing information on their website openly and transparently about this stuff. They said, look, after they figured out yes, managers matter, they said, okay, so what do those managers need to do? Like, what are the good managers doing that are producing the high results? And what are the not so great managers doing that are not producing the results? And they came up with what they still today call their 10 key behaviors of a highly effective manager. All right. And you guys gave me a list of things to kick off this webinar. This is Google's answer to that question. This is what a manager needs to do to be effective. They need to be a good coach. Don't micromanage. Create an environment that values everyone on the team. Focus on productivity and results. Communicate well. Support the development and discuss people's performance. Support people's career development. Have clear vision strategy. Have key technical skills. Some capability in the area that you're managing is important. Collaborate across the system and make good decisions. All right. This is what they're looking for in a manager. Okay. And they break that down into really three areas. And this is where we're going to start to transition and crosswalk into the resource that I'm going to give you. Okay. They said if you take those 10 behaviors and you boil them down, really there's just three main responsibilities that they need from a manager at one of the most technical companies, one of the most technology-driven companies in the world. Managers are expected to deliver results, develop people, and build community. If managers will do those three big buckets of things, it gets the output, the business outcome from those teams and units that Google needs to meet their quarterly revenue goals, to grow, etc. That's what managers have to show up and do. Well, I want to show you a cool little crosswalk to this people leader checklist and these 21 traits that I'm going to give you that actually are a little bit more valuable and helpful than that rundown from what Google shares. Okay. Well, on the left-hand side here, you can see those manager responsibilities. What does the data show a great manager needs to do in order to produce outcomes and results? Well, deliver results, we call those personal qualities. Okay, the personal qualities that a leader shows up with. A little bit about their personal character. Okay, how do they operate? How are they motivated? How do they show up and drive? Developing people, we call that leadership potential. The ability to actually be an effective manager, leader, to grow people. And I'm going to show you the 7 characteristics that fall underneath that. And lastly, managers have to build community. And we call that those relationship skills. And so under each of these 3 areas, personal qualities, leadership potential, and relationship skills, I'm going to show you 7 specific characteristics that if you look for people that have those characteristics, they will be hardwired to be more effective leaders. This is really important, and I'm gonna say it, and you can read it at the same time. But the little phrase at the bottom of this slide is really important to where we're going the rest of the way, and that is that Google's research shows what great managers do, and the impact that they make. The fact that they really do produce better outcomes for the business. The people leader checklist and these 21 characteristics that I'm going to dive into some of the rest of this webinar and then give you the full thing really gets a level deeper into how to spot the potential, the characteristics that would say, yes, that's a person that's likely to do these things that will make them an effective manager, okay? This list where I'm going to provide gives you the ability to spot potential before someone even becomes a leader. And that'll help you make better promotion decisions and even develop people more effectively. If we have questions, feel free to fire those as we go through the webinar. I'll try to monitor the chat. That's probably the best place to do that as opposed to the Q&A, all right? There will be a little time at the end for questions as well. If you want to hold them until then, you can do either. So let's dive into these 21 characteristics that I've been describing. These come from over a decade, probably over 2 decades, of our work with leaders, with organizations, our work with executives, with HR and chief people teams, with frontline managers, really looking at it makes an effective leader inside of organizations. And the first category I want to tackle, the first 7 of these characteristics, is what we call personal qualities. All right. These are the characteristics that really reflect a person's kind of how they're hardwired as an individual. And I'm just going to dive into a few of these. I'm not going to go through all 7, all 21. You'll get that in the resource. But I just want to spotlight a few of these and just share a little bit about why this is so important that you look for these things. And the first of these personal qualities that's on our list is being intellectually curious. When you're promoting someone or you're thinking about promoting someone into a leadership position, it's really important that that person be intrinsically motivated to improve, to look for better ways to do things, to always be learning themselves. Because a great part of being an effective leader and manager is you need to help others grow and develop. And if you're not oriented that way yourself, you're very unlikely to be effective at inspiring growth from others. Okay. So we're looking for someone that, it's that classic interview question of, what have you read or learned in the last week or month, etc. And when people are constant learners, when they are inspired themselves to listen to podcasts, to read books, to attend workshops, to join groups, to have a coach or a mentor, etc., when they're just intellectually curious, it's a good signal that that's the type of person that's likely to be a more effective leader or manager. Let's try another one. Holds themselves to high standards. This is absolutely something that's essential for a manager. Have you ever worked or reported to someone who, they were pretty good at giving orders, but they weren't so good at following through on what they committed to? This is really uninspiring to report to someone who behaves that way, who, when they say they're going to get you something, they're going to deliver something, they're going to schedule a meeting, they're going to compile notes, they're going to whatever it is. If the leader doesn't follow through, if they don't hold themselves highly accountable, that breeds a level of resentment, a level of frustration, and a level of, other people feel like obviously then maybe they don't have to follow through on what they commit to. So this is something really quite easy to see when you're evaluating someone for a promotion is, do they effectively hold themselves to really high standards? And you'll see this in the details. You'll see this in the little things. Do they drop a quick note after an interview or a meeting? Do they show up early? Do they attend to details? Do they hold themselves to high standards? Not just in one area, but in many areas of their life. Okay, this is a great indicator of somebody who and a characteristic that you need to look for in an effective manager. This is a big one. The 5th one on our list says demonstrates emotional stability. And this should be fairly obvious, but it happens all the time that people get promoted into manager roles who terrify people by their mood swings. Well, I don't know what kind of mood he's going to be in today. I'd avoid it. I wouldn't bring up that problem today. Maybe tomorrow. Okay. It's crippling to a team if people can't feel safe and comfortable voicing their candid opinions, saying when there's a challenge or a problem, saying when they don't understand things, asking a challenging question, giving tough feedback, disagreeing in a meeting. Whatever it is, when a manager or a leader has a temper or is unpredictable, some days they're cool and relaxed, other days they're go, go, go. It really makes people on edge, and it shuts down communication. It shuts down transparency, trust, all sorts of things. And so this is something that people neglect, much to their own, to the creation of a big problem in their business. And I could point to, and I'm sure you could too, managers that you've reported to who exhibit sort of an up and down, hot and cold perspective. And boy, I am just telling you, if you can look for this before you make those crucial promotion decisions, you are setting up teams for much, much greater success. So those are the first category, these personal qualities. Anything stand out? Any thoughts on those that stand out from you that you could put into the chat? Any perspectives on that? Anything surprise you that's on that list? Now, you're not required to put anything in the chat here, but I want to give you a chance to interact, to share, to give any ideas on things that stand out from this first list of personal qualities. Yeah, I agree. Thank you, John. Couldn't agree more on number five. Me either. I can't really imagine at this point reporting to somebody who I didn't know what kind of mood they were going to be in. Wonderful. All right. Keep those comments coming. I love seeing what's resonating, what's not, even pushback if you have it. All right. Why do these personal qualities matter? Well, because they're the hardest to coach, right? If you're trying to grow someone, once you promote them into a position, it's hard to coach emotional regulation. You can do it, but that's not my favorite thing to work with somebody on because when it's hardwired, when their heart's pumping or they're feeling anxious or they're feeling frustrated, you can make progress if you work with a really good therapist or counselor or folks that really are good at coaching those types of things. But it's not easy progress. Okay, these things that are hardwired, these personal qualities, they're hard to change. So if you don't get them right in the first place, your leadership potential and a lot of that damage that happens there, it can be a big deal. Okay, and it's hard to change. Past behavior obviously predicts future behavior. And these personal characteristics, the qualities, when I ask people in seminars over the years, describe a great leader, who's a great leader you've worked for? Most of the time, they don't tell me about their career exploits or their brilliance. They talk about their character. They talk about their personal qualities. And so that really, really, really is important not to overlook as really the foundation of leadership. I got one more comment in here that said number two was a big one. And so I want to just go back and look at that one, which is embraces change. Now, just because I don't talk about it live on the webinar doesn't mean it's any less important. All seven of these are things that you should look for. And people who embrace change, I agree, that's essential, right? Every business, especially today, is changing faster than ever. And if a leader doesn't look for that change, etc., isn't open to it, isn't chasing those positive innovations, it really creates it slows down teams. Teams feel it. Okay. All right. Let's dive into category number two, and I would invite you as well. Put things in the chat here on what stands out to you. Which ones do you really agree with, or have you seen yourself? And are there any that you think, I don't know, Brett, tell me more about that. I'm not sure. All right. So these are what we call relationship skills. Now, when we're looking to promote someone into a management role or to promote someone further up in an organization, relationships matter, okay? Employees have a relationship with their job. They have a relationship with their company. They have a relationship with their teammates, with their leader, okay? And employee engagement in many, many ways can kind of be thought of as a relationship. What makes me want to show up and do my best work? What makes me want to build a better product, to do more sales, now part of that is income. You're going to pay me for it. Hopefully I'll work hard all year and get recognized with a bonus or something. But the more important motivation is, how do I feel every day? What's my connection to my team, my manager, our product, our mission? All those things are really relationships. And so if you want to be effective as a leader, as a manager, you have to be good at building and maintaining relationships, which is why these skills are so essential. I'm just going to hit on a couple of them. Again, all seven are, I don't know if I can say equally important, but it doesn't mean I picked the best ones for the webinar, just the ones I wanted to talk about. So if you want to have good relationship skills, you need to look for someone who's a good listener, okay? Communication is a two-way street. It's not just about saying things effectively. It's about listening. We have two ears and one mouth for a reason, right? Listening even more than we talk. Good managers, they download and they upload information. Okay, they share and receive. They don't have to be, and often are not, the smartest person in the room. They just know how to get wisdom out of a team. Okay, working as a leader is working not. It's a big change going from an individual contributor to a manager, because you're not producing work as a manager anymore. You're producing work through others. And the way that you do that is by building relationships and creating an environment where those people feel most effective and able to produce the outcomes that you want. Okay. So being a good listener is essential. If you don't hear what your people are saying, they're going to stop telling you things, right? So I'm not going to go any deeper on that one for now. Appreciate the comments over here. I got a long comment. I have to read that one slow or fast in a second. Next one. Number 11, being highly responsive to the needs of others. Now, this is one that will get overlooked a lot. Okay, it's unless you attend this webinar, have our checklist, it makes sense. You'll get it. You'll agree with me. But I bet you the last person that you promoted into a leadership role, or maybe when you got promoted, this wasn't really given enough consideration. The idea of producing work through other people, which is really what management is, means that you need to be positioned in a way to be the best resource possible to those people, to create the right environment, to create the right culture, but also to be responsive and available when your people need you. My father tells a story that amuses me, that when he was doing his graduate study work years and years ago in university, he had a graduate professor that he was assigned to that every day had blocked 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock p.m. as reading time for the professor, where he was not to be interrupted. Now, my dad had a busy life. I was just a little kid at home. He had a full-time job. He was trying to go to school. He was juggling a whole bunch of things, and he had to drive an hour to Lincoln, Nebraska for school, and then back to Bellevue, and all these things. He had a very busy life. And once in a while, he just needed like a couple quick minutes with his professor. But if it happened to be between 1 and 3, he would just have to sit there and wait and wait and wait until after 3 o'clock he could politely knock on the door and get his 2-minute, question answered before he drove the rest of the way home and took care of the rest of his day. Now, what he would say is that professor was probably a very good individual contributor. He was focused on what he needed to do to get his productivity. But that type of a perspective on, hey, I'm focused on my work and I don't want to be interrupted, is a terrible characteristic in a leader or a manager. A manager has to be responsive to the needs of their people. A manager is the type of person that wants to respond to an email after hours, to be available, to take a phone call, to do whatever they need to do to support their team when the team needs to be supported. And so if you see things that run counter to that, think twice before you put that person in a leadership role, right? I guess I only have 2 on that one. I thought I might have a third one that pop up. Let's see what we got for comments here. Intellectual curiosity is vital from a leadership perspective. I agree, Constance. Absolutely. Okay, let's see. Number 10 can be overlooked. Good listener. I agree. Easily overlooked. People don't understand how valuable being a great listener is. And when we do coaching work and have worked with clients, it tends to be something that very quickly people realize they don't do very well. And once they start working on it, they realize how much value it adds to their communication ability, to their decision-making ability, to their ability to build a higher performing team, to create psychological safety. It is a power skill that doesn't get talked about enough. Michaela says 14 has been her secret weapon. Can and will laugh at themselves. Yeah, right? That knocks down barriers. It lets people know it's okay to screw up once in a while. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to, you don't have to put up these fake walls, because those fake walls, they're barriers to effective communication, productivity, etc. And when a leader is willing to laugh at themselves, then others say, oh, okay, I can be myself here too. And that really does create higher performing teams. George is big on number 11. Highly responsive to others. I love that. Love it, love it. So again, these are 7 really important things that'll tell you, does this person have the likelihood to build relationships effectively within their team and across an organization? And they should not be overlooked. All right. Why are these important? This should be pretty obvious, but because, as I mentioned, supervising people is managing relationships. Okay. And if you can't manage those relationships effectively, you're going to have a really hard time as a supervisor. Similar to what Michaela's comment mentioned on number 14, people want to work for someone that they like and know and trust. Okay. And when you can show up as a real person, when you can let your hair down a little bit, when you can laugh at yourself, that pulls your team closer to you, because they want to work with someone that they like and that they know and that they can trust. And that will improve their commitment, their loyalty, their performance, their buy-in, all of those things. And back to what I mentioned earlier, when I ask people to describe a mentor or a leader in their life that made a difference, they often will describe this last and third bullet on this slide, which is a leader who cared, who listened, who was interested in them, right? Who helped them grow and develop. That's what people are looking for from a leader. So look for those characteristics when you're making these decisions. All right. Okay. Last area, leadership potential. All right. Now, I'll grant you, there's a range of things on this list, the last 7 things in our people leader checklist, but they really relate to, how much really just potential does this person have to be a great leader? Okay. And this is a mishmash of a few different types of perspectives that we see and that research has documented over the years are what people want from a manager and what types of leaders and managers get better results. Excuse me. So let's see which ones I picked to share here. Number 15, willingly gives away credit. Okay. Now I could do a whole program just on this one. In the early on, when I asked you what characteristics to look for, someone in the comments, I apologize, I forget who, but said humble or humility. Okay. I've asked this to over 100 audiences, and I'll ask it to you all as well. And feel free to reply in the chat. Okay. If you had the option of reporting to a manager who liked to get credit, liked the spotlight, liked to be known as the smartest person in the room, liked to always say, hey, have their voice heard loudest and most often, etc. Or the opposite, a leader or a manager who never had to have the last word, who didn't need to be right, who liked to spotlight other people, who liked to, let's say that was manager A and this is manager B. In your comment, put B or A. Who would you rather report to? Opposite, the second, B. Okay. I've never once been in a room where I've had any significant number of hands go up for the first option. Yet we promote people into management roles that behave that first way with regularity. Okay. This is something you really need to look at because it's not the smartest person. It's not the most eager person. It's not the person who most wants to get a bigger title or a promotion that should be promoted. It's the person that will be the most effective manager. And the most effective manager is going to be someone who doesn't need credit, who wants the team to succeed, who wants others to succeed. Okay? This one is doubly important because oftentimes, oftentimes the people who will be gunning for these promotions, who will want management roles, who want swift progression, who apply every single time something opens, tend to be people who aren't quite as humble as people that say, I don't know, there's probably a lot of other great people who could lead the team. I like it here. I'm happy to be a team player. Those folks, they don't gun for these leadership jobs. You have to sometimes seek them out. And if you're looking for this as a characteristic, it will help you avoid those huge mistakes of promoting people that just want credit and the spotlight that will be ineffective as leaders and managers, and it'll help you get the right people into those roles that people actually want to work for. This is a big one, okay? Number 17. This is another unique one that you're not going to see very many other places outside of Better Culture. But I would really advise you against promoting someone into a management role that you can't tell is just proud of the company, is proud of where they work, is proud of your products, is proud of your mission, is proud of the team, is proud of your culture, is proud of, if you can't give me 3 things that you just know this person is exuding with pride about your company, think twice before you promote them into a leadership position. Because when the leader is proud to be associated with your brand, your organization, etc., that filters down to their team. Their team will feel proud. And a feeling of pride is one of the most important long-term motivators to performance, to employee engagement, to retention, to results. Okay? If you can help people feel proud of what they do, where they work, I am telling you that is heavily correlated with the results that you're looking to deliver as an organization. And so ask yourself before you make a promotion decision, how proud is this person of the company, of the product, of whatever it is, okay? But if you can't show that they're proud of something other than themselves, don't put them in leadership role, okay? This is really important. Don't overlook it. Chad says, not me, but we. I agree, right? That's the giving away the credit and pride. That speaks to both. One more here. And this one is obvious, but it still gets overlooked. And that is, are they willing to have tough conversations? Is this a person that when something needs to be said, they sit on their hands and don't say it? Because we all know all of our organizations are full of those people. That when we ask in a meeting with 9 people, anybody have any other thoughts? Any objections? Anyone have any concerns? Nobody says anything, right? And then you find out 48 hours later, 3 people had concerns. Why did you not say it in the meeting? What did we need to do, right? And this can be very frustrating. Those types of folks who aren't willing to disagree, to speak up, to voice an alternate opinion, I would just, or to have a tough conversation with a colleague, I would hesitate before putting them in leadership positions. Because it's not that they have to be the authoritative voice, but if they're not willing to disagree, if they're not willing to have a tough conversation, to have conflict, that's probably the number one characteristic that ruins or that undermines what otherwise could have been a really effective manager. Except they're not willing to have tough conversations with people. They're not willing to give feedback. They're not willing to explain why you're not getting much of a raise this year because you're not meeting your expectations. Or if you don't improve, you're not going to be here very long. Okay? This is important as a manager, and you should look ahead of time. Do they lean into these hard conversations, or do they really shy away? And if they shy away, you should think twice before promoting them into a leadership role. Okay, anything from this last category that stands out to you for one reason or another? I'd love to see it in the chat. As I transition, you guys can type while I transition, to a little bit of reinforcement of why that last category, these leadership potential, these 7 that I just went over, why those matter. And ultimately, it's because they're heavily tied, they're heavily tied to team functioning, to have a well-functioning team. Communication, trust, credit, etc., those tough conversations, all that has to do with really building a high-functioning team, okay? We need to be able to have conflict and healthy conflict to really manage performance in a system effectively. And ultimately, a lot of those things on that last category are going to be tied to, do we achieve the goals that we set out to achieve or not? Okay. And ultimately, that's probably the top priority of being a manager or a leader is, do you deliver the results that your team needs to deliver? Okay. So you got to have a backbone as well as heart to be an effective leader and manager. Let's see. We have one comment on number 17, not something that you had thought about, but you notice it and haven't given it the weight that it deserves. Thank you for that. That being proud of the company. When we do leadership development work, it's something that makes Better Culture different, is we actually spend time teaching managers what they can say and do to help other people be more proud of where they work. Guess what? The managers that are already really proud of where they work, they make hay with what we teach them. The managers that, I don't know, it's a job, they think of it as a salary, as a whatever. They don't ever do what we ask. They don't ever do the work to help others feel more proud of the organization. So thank you for that one. I agree, Lois, shying away from conflict is a real problem if you're going to be a leader. Totally agree. All right. So when you download this resource, if you don't have it already, I'm going to share the link for that. If my associate Andrea is on the call, I'd like her to share the link for that in the chat. And if she doesn't, I'll make sure that gets done here shortly. But stay tuned. We're going to share a link to where you can download this here in a minute. And then I think there's even a QR code at the end of the conversation that you can use as well. Hey, there it is. Thank you, Andrea. It looks like this with about 16 other good pages of content in the middle, explaining these things, diving a little bit deeper into these things. But there actually is a checklist that we want you to use. And as you can see on that little list and checklist, you can actually use it to evaluate people. Are they weak on this? Are they neutral? Are they strong? Or actually, I don't know. I don't have enough context to be aware of whether or not the person does these things. So 3 ways to use the checklist once you download it, etc. First off is the way I've mostly described it during this presentation, to just better identify leadership talent, okay? To help figure out, hey, we always need to find more emerging leaders. Who are the next people that we should be investing time, effort, and energy into helping them grow within the organization. Okay. The second is when you actually have a position open and you're evaluating a promotion decision or an external hire. Okay. We need to look for what is it that we need to make sure that we're looking for and evaluating, and literally just use the checklist as it's created. Evaluate them. Check the boxes. Okay. Are they, how good of a fit are they? And by the way, nobody's going to be perfect. Okay. If in 15 out of the 21 areas you've got information that says, heck yeah, they do that, that'd be an amazing leader. Okay. And on probably 6, 7, 8, 10 of the areas, you might say, I don't know, I'm unsure. I need to check. We need to look into that. Okay. That's fine. But have the conversation, use the checklist to help you make those decisions. And then lastly, the thing that I'll flip back to the other slide here in a second, but you can use these 17 things or 21 things to develop any leader, right? You can use it as an evaluation or a coaching conversation. You could say, hey, you can use it with yourself. Which one of these things am I strong on? And which one of these things have I never thought about or do I have room for improvement on? And if I want to be more effective as a leader, as a manager, let's set a growth goal. Let's focus on one or two of these myself or across my system to help my managers grow. All right. Now, it's most effective if these are just raw characteristics that people sort of have in spades. But if somebody doesn't have it, doesn't mean they can't work on it, that they can't improve, that they can't get a little more effective. All right. If you've hung on this long, I want to give you a little plug and a little opportunity here. I mentioned this checklist is really all about identifying the right people, putting the right people into leadership roles. But ultimately, once you get them in the right spots, you do have to build the skills that we discussed today. Most new supervisors don't get the support that they need. They're just kind of thrown into leadership and asked to figure it out. And that approach doesn't usually lead to great leaders, even if you have the right people in the right roles. And so we do offer at Better Culture sort of an on-demand, we call it Mindset Leadership Program, which is a video-based program that helps new supervisors gain skills, gain confidence, strengthen behaviors, etc. It gives them some real-life tangible tools. And a few of you I know that are on this call have been exposed to some of our training, so you've been through this. I just want to remind everybody, we have a digital program. You can always hire us to come and directly do training with your folks. You can come to one of our open conferences throughout the year. But if you just have a couple leaders that could use a brush up on some of our leadership development content, for attending today, there is a discount on that program. Normally it's a $749 program to go through 56 videos to hear directly from our founder, Dr. Kim Hoogeveen. There's discounted access to that for $499 per leader just for attending today. It's a $250 savings. If you're interested, Andrea shared that link in the chat as well, or you can always feel free to email me at Brett@BetterCulture anytime if you want to connect. All right. Here's the if you didn't see the link earlier that Andrea posted, here's a QR code to help you actually download that people leader checklist. And that is bringing me to the end of the presentation, where I'd really like to hear if you have any questions, any comments, any thoughts that we as a group should share or discuss a little bit before I sign off with a little bit more information that I want to make sure that y'all get at the very end. So, Chad, okay, let's see what we've got here. What about emotional regulation? Yes, yeah, what about emotional regulation? That's a great way to phrase it, emotional regulation. And at the start of the program, we talked about basically is emotionally stable and predictable. And that's very much overlapping and the same thing. It is really, really important. That's that idea of staying calm under pressure, maintaining. It doesn't always have to be a positive, but a predictable, professional, receptive tone is really important to creating psychological safety. So I agree with that, Chad, that emotional regulation is super important and is very squarely represented by one of those 21 characteristics. Any other thoughts or questions? If not, I can stay on afterwards. I want to make sure, I don't want to belabor getting to the final slide here, which is when you close out of this webinar, you're going to be asked to take a survey. And I would love it if you would take that survey, answer those questions. It doesn't take very long. After today's webinar, you should get a recording, I believe, emailed to you. But you'll also get some links to the resources that we shared today, details on that on-demand mindset leadership program, and those exclusive offers and other things that I mentioned on the webinar. So thank you for being here. We are on a mission to make the world a better place to work. And just by coming to this webinar, and especially if you do something after the webinar, you will be helping us with that mission of making not just your organization, but the whole world a better place to work. Thanks for being here. Hope to see you next time. Take care. Thank you guys. I appreciate all the thank yous. Good to see some familiar faces. Take care. See you, Carrie. See you, Constance. Bye, Marana, Patricia, Danette. Thanks, guys. I don't know how to turn off my webinar. Oh, I have to stop the share. Where's the end when I'm sharing? There we go. Bye, guys.